Otherwise, they wouldn't be alive. They have to have a nefesh.
No. They don't have.
They have a godly soul. A godly soul. They don't have
the animal.
The animalistic soul. But animalistic soul is something spiritual too,
So
because
that's the one that we're talking.
Animalistic soul is something spiritual also, because you gotta. It's not, soul is not tangible. Animalistic soul, vital soul. It's called vital soul. You're giving them life. A Jew has a chelik aleka, a godly soul as well. But where do they get their life from? So they are being sustained from the 10 spheres of Klippa. Yeah. So long as the Shekhinah is in exile and godliness is subdued, we are under their rule. And this is really the sad part of the whole thing. Shekhinah is in exile. What does it mean? That godliness is subdued, meaning godliness is under the dominion, the domination of the other side. Kedusha is under the domination of Klippa. So we get it through them. They are now the boss. If they are the boss, we get it through them. We are under the rule. The Jew, however, receives his sustenance from the face, inner desire of Hashem. So one is getting from the outer, and one is getting from the inner. Jews get from the inner, from the face. So it really doesn't say, per se, that we get from them. He says we are under the rule, their rule. We are under them, in a way. So let's see. Now, God created this opposite that, meaning you have the side of holiness, and the counterpart of holiness is the other side, the klippa, the impurity. So since the entire dynamic of the holy side of the universe has its counterpart in the other side, the sitra acha, the above mentioned 10 sefirot of holiness, and likewise the 10 corresponding faculties of godly soul, each have their unholy counterpart. You know what the best example to it is? You think about Avram, you had Nimrod, you had Moshe Rabbeinu, you had Bilam, you had Mordechai, you have Haman. There's always the counterpart. Right? Moshe, Paro, also. Paro, counterpart of Kedusha. The counterpart to Kedusha.
So how do we neutralize? If they were created, how can we neutralize those counterparts?
By freeing the Shekhinah. Because he says the Shekhinah is in exile, so therefore we are under the rule. The moment the Shekhinah comes out of exile, so our job is really, beside the individual mission, we have the collective mission, which is to raise the Shekhinah. Raise the Shekhinah. It's a famous statement. The Shekhinah is in the ground, in Ara. It says, and our job is to uplift it. One of the ways is when we learn Torah, we free the Shekhinah. So he writes, Yesh asoro kisri de misavusa. There are 10 crowns of impurity. 10 crowns of impurity. From these issue the souls of the nation. Meaning from these 10 crowns of impurity, you have souls of the nations are coming from those crowns, which are also comprised of the very same 10 levels. Okay, they also have 10 levels. The exposition of Sefer HaGilgulim. Sefer HaGilgulim is a book that speaks about reincarnations. Reincarnation is like the neshama being reincarnated. So, Mashikos Sefer HaGilgulim Pasuk Asher Sholat Odom Vodom Lerale. On the verse that man rules over man to his detriment, his common knowledge. Let's see, what does it mean, man rules over man? There's 2 points here. One, that man rules over man, and number 2 is that it's not beneficial to him, it's to its detriment. Meaning it's there is a negative consequence to it. He writes, "Soid golus hashchina." This is the secret of the fact that Shechina is in exile. Divine presence is in exile. In the time of exile, the divine presence is also in exile, besoich haklippus, which means in the midst of klippus. What's the exile? La'achris som u'la'shlitam atu b'zman hagolus. In order to animate them. Imagine Shechina animate klippa, which is the worst thing. Imagine you have to feed your children you enjoy it. You have to feed someone you hate. It's difficult. Time after time after time, you're giving him life, you're giving him sustenance, you're helping him. It's difficult because now you don't like him, so therefore, how much more so you don't want to help him. So you write, "Ulashlitam atu b'zman hagolus." In order to animate them and to empower them to rule in the present time of exile. So you're giving them life, number one, animating them. And number two, you're empowering them by giving them life. You're making them strong. You're empowering them to rule in the present time of exile. So what does it mean? That they're becoming the rulers. Who's the rulers of the world right now? Obviously Hashem runs the show, but it's going. On a physical level, we see going. You can argue this one is good, Putin, Trump, this. Obviously, the heart of kings and ministers are in the hand of Hashem. But why is there not, why don't we have a Jewish king, Jewish president, a religious one, someone that follows the ways of Torah? So it says because Shechina is in exile, divine presence is in exile, giving life to the other side, and therefore it's also empowering them to rule. Man rules over man means that the evil man of Klippa, rules over the sacred man. So it's like the evil inclination rules over the good inclination. The good part within the person is being dominated by the evil part. So, by the way, a statement of King Solomon that a man rules over man. The Klippa rules over Kedusha. If someone is allowing his evil inclination to dominate him, it's a man rules over man.
No, not only that way, like you said, the president.
No, this is example how the nations of the world are being empowered by the Shechina feeding Klippa. Shechina sustaining Klippa, therefore the nations of the world are empowered. That's one point. The concept of Sholat Odom B'Odom, that a man dominates man, is referring to the negativity dominates positivity. Impurity dominates holiness. But he says, Avalu Leralo, however, the temporary dominion of evil is to his ultimate detriment, for its underlying intent is that the sparks of holiness that are found within evil be extracted and elevated. So he says like this. Let's take, for example, the evil inclination. The evil inclination objective is to dominate. So therefore, once it dominates you, you do what he wants. Influences you, and then you do what he wants. And do this, do that. But he says ultimately it's to its detriment, meaning eventually, in the long run, he's not going to benefit from it. That, meaning Klippa dominating Kedusha, holiness, being dominated by Klippa, eventually it's not going to do good for Klippa. It would reach the opposite outcome. Why? Because eventually you're going to elevate those sparks. meaning within Klippa itself, there's godly sparks. And these sparks are going to be, you will be engaging in them and elevating them.
How if you're doing something negative?
Because it creates a conflict. When the moment that there's a conflict, it forces you to respond to the conflict, meaning to engage in it, right?
And the positive always wins.
Eventually it's going to win. So let's see what he says. He says, Alter Rebbe tells us, however, that this temporary dominion of evil, meaning the fact that evil dominates, first of all, it's temporary. It's not eternally. And to his ultimate detriment, for its underlying intent is that the sparks of holiness that are found within evil be extracted. So he says, the deep inside, even Klippa wants it to be extracted. But the moment that godliness is extracted from Klippa dies. It says, this is why the nations presently dominate the Jewish people.
Why is it necessary to have this counterpart if we already have the Yetzirah?
The Yetzirah is the counterpart. Okay. And if not for the Yetzirah, you don't have a free choice. And you don't need to be rewarded for anything. You're like an angel.
Yeah, but the Yetzirah, we have it besides this animalistic soul of the non-Jews.
Yeah, but the animalistic soul that we have without the evil inclination would be just feed me and so I'm not dying. Give me the basics so I can survive.
They work together.
They work together, but the evil inclination takes advantage of the animalistic soul. He intensifies it. He makes it bigger. He makes it the most important and so on. He prioritizes the animalistic soul. If you just had an animalistic soul without evil inclination, so you would eat because you have to eat. And you couldn't care less about what food you eat. Like, we had a guy, we had a teacher, his name was Rabbi Asher. So he said, who decides that I have to put the butter on the bread? If you want to eat butter and bread, so eat the butter and then eat the bread. Like, people put cream cheese on the bread. They eat it together. So who decides? Society decided that you have to eat, you put butter on the bread. He said, who decided? So I eat. You want me to eat both? I'll eat both. But I eat the butter and then No, it's just an example. It shows you. At the beginning,
you're going to eat it independently.
No, but the animalistic soul wants it to be. The animalistic soul wants you to eat. Yetzirah says it needs to be enjoyable. It has to be delightful.
So
it has to be.
Distracts you.
No. Say it not just distracts you, but it makes you. It gives you completely different priorities. It prioritizes food.
To focus, to focus on those
focus on
chefs and these restaurants.
Focus on food. Focus on physical things. Right. The rest is not important. And reject the.
To serve Hashem, not to.
Right, to give you to sustain you, so you can serve Hashem. Right. It doesn't say you shouldn't enjoy the food, but evil inclination wants to make it grandiose. Food is something grandiose. Food is something to talk about. And I'm just using the example of food. It could be any other passion, any other desire that a person has. The desire also comes from the evil inclination. Your basic animalistic soul wants to be fed. It wants to sleep, wants to eat, because if a body feels that he needs A, B, and C. But that's not what that's all wants to make it much more than that. That should be the focus, and that's it. For example, if a guy's hungry and he eats.
You have the example of the shoes, the kids now. There's tons of sneakers and running shoes that you can pay whatever, $30, and they're good quality. But they create these new designs and with this, that. It's not necessary, right? You need to walk and cover your shoes. That's it. In everything, it's like this. People, it's exaggerating and yeah. Confusing, distracting from the reality.
So he writes, this is why the nations presently dominate the Jewish people. For Lias Nafshis Ha'umis, Blochen Ha'umis Shotim Atu Al Yisrael, Lias Nafshis Ha'umis Ma'kripes Rishchina Mislavesh Rishchina Ve'oz B'tzechom. For the souls of the nation derive from the klippus, in which the Shechina is vested in a state of exile, empowering them to rule, as we said in the beginning. He says, though this concept requires extensive exposition as to how and what is the manner in which the Shechina is invested in the exile of the Klippot. But nevertheless, it's truly so. It is what it is. It tells you this is the bottom line. This is what happens. It needs a lengthy explanation of how it came about, why, when, how much. But it says, "Ha'em mesuken." This is the truth. This is what happened. Kema el ha'sha'af al pichein. Despite this, ein ha'klippas ve'omis yenkim u'kav m'chas ha'ma'or ha'nimshechas lohem v'chinas ha'cham d'kedusha. Despite this, the klippas and the nations receive their nurture and life force only from a reflection extended to them from the hindmost dimension of holiness. Meaning that what they get is like someone that you hate and you need to give him a check or you need to give him something, so you throw it like this. You want to see his face. You take it and you throw it to him. You don't even turn your face to him. So you're turning your back to him. So klippas are receiving, but they're receiving externally. That's what it means from the hinder part, from the back. Command the shadi basar kasfei is the manner of one unwillingly throws something over his shoulder to his enemy. So even what they get from the back, externally, has to go through so many contractions and screens and partitions in order for them to get. Until this radiation becomes, this light, this illumination, this flow becomes invested or become vested in the materiality of the world. So it has to go through a lot to come down. Beside the fact that it's from the back, they're receiving externally, you have also the aspect of...
And in which moment do we feed them? When we are distracted? That's when they're getting more... You
feed them when you serve them. You can feed them also when you learn Torah. You can feed them when you learn Torah. If you learn Torah for self-grandiose, if you're learning Torah for ego, honor, whatever it is, you also give them life. If you eat for enjoyment only, you give them life.
Right.
It's not a vera to eat and to enjoy, but you do eating to enjoy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
you are now merkava. What does it mean? You become a chariot, a vehicle to the other side. You become a vehicle to the other side, and you make him stronger. You make the other side stronger.
Right.
Like we spoke about cars, right? So if you take, if you give someone that you don't like a car, he has more tools now to use it against you. You're giving him power. This is really, he says, dispensing, meaning we said before that they receive from the back, from the hind part or hind part, hindmost dimension, from the back, but it has to go through many screens, right? Partitions. On top of all those things, look what they get. Dispensing, giving them wealth and honor and all physical pleasures unto the nations. So they receive a lot. Now, Jews, Mashenkin is so, Yenkim B'chinas Panim Alyanik, Mashikosu Yeravai Panav Elecha, Kalecha Dvecha Lefi Shosh Nishmos Hadamaris. On the other hand, Jews, however illicit to their sustenance, they get their life, their sustenance, from the supernal countenance, meaning from the face. Panim, or Pnimius, from the innermost aspect of divinity. So Jews are on a different level. They receive from a different source, from pure source, not Shechina, exile, vested in the clippers, the 10 crowns of impurity, and so on. Each, even comes to Jews, it says, we say, may God make his countenance shine upon you, each according to the source of his soul, up to the most elevated levels. So the takeaway from today's Tanya, it is the innermost countenance of God that shine upon the Jewish people. Pnimius. Buchim to you. See you, God willing, tomorrow.
Interesting. Yeah, I always understood that